Now with this week's episode of Megalo, we're left with just one more episode before this show is going to wrap up, and I have to say, this is one of the first time in a long time that I can remember that I'm not sad that a show's about to end, even though I adore the show and everything that it represents. I feel like it only needs one more episode. This episode really fleshed out where all the side characters that we've been introduced to over the past 11 weeks, not including this episode, we're at, and I feel like everything that we need to happen is going to happen in episode 13. Win or lose, live or die, whatever happens to Joe in that arena, I'm going to be okay with. And that says something, because typically when you're watching any series, not even just a sports series, your idea is you're going to want to root for the main character, you're going to want the main character to live to reach his goal. This is a series, however, that has represented characters, especially Yuri, Yuri was a character I didn't really have any interest in the beginning stages of the series, because I assumed he was going to be a very arrogant, he thought he was the hotshot of the arena, but he slowly but surely over the course of this season has been built up into someone who's more or less similar to Joe, kind of been dragged along all his life to do something and now finally has a goal of his own. Joe not wanting to follow Pops' schemes anymore, fighting in the arena as a true equal, and Yuri backing away from more or less his owner and saying like, I've helped you reach your goal, now it's time to reach mine. Everything about what this episode represented, showing us returning side characters like to train with Joe, that was awesome to see because he's fine with retirement, but he gets to help someone who's a true equal in his mind help reach the top and hopefully defeat Yuri. And to see that Pops, even though he's blind, he's still got that ear, and he can hear when his boy Joe is not landing the punches the way he wants, and I love that moment, but I love even more the fact that Yuri takes off his gear, an incredibly dangerous and stupid thing to do because he has like gear that is literally bound to his body. This is an insanely painful process, and unless he has an extreme will to live and to be able to fight in the arena, he's not going to make it through that surgery successfully in time for the fight. And I love that moment because all this time it's always been about gear, it's been about enhancements, but Yuri's always also understood that it's the fighter who makes the gear, not the gear doesn't make the fighter. But he understands that Joe is his equal, and it's not like this came out of left field. This has been built up throughout the entire season. Yuri looking at Joe as nothing, but slowly but surely building his way up as a gearless fighter. He's a true equal and someone who he envies and wants to fight, so the fact that he removes his gear, it's just absolutely incredible to see characters like Aragaki come back from retirement to fight. It's awesome to see Mikio return, more or less redeemed from his evil and kind of like, well, not really evil, but kind of like scummy ways. Having Yukio, like, everything about her, like, she should be a character we don't want to like, but she had a redemption arc, more or less. And how everything is building up to that final episode, I'm happy, I'm content. Like, win or lose, live or die, whatever happens with Joe, I'm fine with. Because ultimately, the goal was to fight a true equal, and both of them, Joe and Yuri, are about to fight their equal. And no matter who wins or loses, that's fine. Like, the episode title and the fact that Joe's been having some severe body issues over the past few weeks, it definitely leads me to believe Joe is going to die at the end of this fight. Maybe he won't, maybe it'll be a red herring, but still, I'm fine if he does, because it feels like Joe has reached what he's kind of been yearning for his entire life, a purpose and a goal, and he's reached that goal. And to go up against someone who looks at him as an equal, who took off his gear to fight him, I don't think he would care what happens to him in that arena because he would be content. And as much as characters like Pops would be sad, I feel like they would also understood he did something for himself for the first time and he wasn't used by anybody. And that's incredible writing in my books. And the soundtrack, once again, this soundtrack I think is my second favorite soundtrack of all time. Guilty Crown has my favorite OST, but Megalo, there's so many moments in this episode, I'm just like, this is the most impressive track I've heard in a long time, and then they'll pull out a different track that I haven't heard, I'm like, okay, this is even better than the last. A good soundtrack makes you want to download it and listen to it by itself, but an amazing soundtrack amplifies those scenes to really get the emotions going throughout you. And Megalo is doing just that. This episode was incredible. It's set up next week in the best way. I actually thought the fight was going to start in this episode and end next week, but I'm glad they took this episode to show us where all the side characters are at and how each of them, even though we might have thought we were going to hate them at first, they've kind of been rebuilt and really feel like human characters aiming for something, and no character is really being used by anyone anymore. It feels like everyone's doing something for themselves, and I love how different this series is feeling to what I thought it was going to be when it first started out. This episode was amazing. I love the character development. I love seeing what Yuri did Yuri might actually be my favorite character in the series, even past Joe. As much as I like Joe, seeing where his character started and where it built up to, it's incredible to see what he's willing to do for Joe now, and I can't wait to see how that fight's going to go down next week. Let me know what you're feeling down in that comment section below. You love it, you hate it, your favorite moment. Let me know what you're feeling, and before you leave, be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and if you're new, also be sure to subscribe. So till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.